Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started in just 1 minute. We're waiting for everyone to join. I can see that there's still a number of folks jumping in. Okay, Ava, could you please give the Spanish instruction and I will turn on interpretation.
Hola, buenos días. Si escuchas mi voz, estás en el audio en inglés, por favor, escoge la opción de audio para español. Vas a ver en tu caja de herramientas la palabra more, M-O-R-E. Si no ves la caja de herramientas, por favor, toca en tu pantalla, activa tu pantalla en tu laptop, teléfono o tu tableta. Actívala nuevamente por tocar la pantalla. Después vas a ver la opción More, M-O-R-E, para más. Haga clic en esa opción. Vas a ver la opción de interpretación y escoge la burbujita en verde que dice español. También puede ser que ves en tu pantalla una burbujita que dice English o en español Spanish. Por favor, escoge en blanco la burbujita que dice Spanish. Izzy, back to you.
Thank you. And sorry, I should have turned transcription on after that. It doesn't do well with the Spanish. You should see the English and Spanish interpretation available pop up at the bottom of your screen. If you are a Spanish speaker, click it. If you're a Spanish speaker, choose Spanish. If you're an English speaker, please choose English. If you fail to do this, you will not be able to hear the Spanish interpretation. So please choose English or Spanish, whichever you prefer. Let's see, are other folks, I'm seeing that someone's not getting sound. Are folks getting sound? Thumbs ups? Okay. All right. All right, I don't know if someone could be chatting with Arlene, that would be helpful. Okay, so. Great, good morning. So thank you first to Sandra for providing interpretation for us. And we have a number of folks who join here who are Spanish speakers, and we're able to have this open to a much bigger group because of that. So everyone, please do choose your interpretation, English or Spanish. Okay, here we go. So good morning. My name is Izzy Greenberg. I run the Middlesex Coalition for Children. These calls are sponsored by an early childhood partnership of 4 organizations: CSEA SEIU, the Middlesex Coalition for Children, the Connecticut Association for Human Services, and the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance. Thank you first to all of the legislators who could make time to be with us this morning. We know there are also many more who wish they could have attended, but there were committee conflicts, and we know that some of you may need to turn your cameras off at some point. People are going back and forth between things, but we're grateful for you to being here. And as a note, we will be sending out the recording and the main points to all legislators after this forum, including to those who couldn't be here this morning. For context, this group of organizations has been running weekly calls and webinars since March of 2020, when the pandemic hit and providers needed information. We've now had hundreds of calls and have built up an amazing early care and education provider and advocacy community. This group has voice, it has vision, and the message is clear. Childcare has been broken for years and the economics don't make sense. We need to get our economy moving, and I'm going to turn it over to Meryl Gay of the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance to lay out the issues for the forum today.
Mute myself. Everywhere we go, we see help wanted signs, and there is clearly a labor shortage in the economy that is impacting childcare, and childcare impacts that labor shortage. You're going to hear today stories from providers about the difficulties they're facing right now, particularly with hiring staff. And let me, I'll go back over to Izzy. You're
Great.
muted.
Yeah, thank you. So listen, our economy relies on childcare. We need parents working. We need first responders working. And let's also remember that this group was one of the groups that stayed open during the pandemic because we needed doctors at work. We needed folks at work. And despite all of the unknowns, our childcare stayed open for the most part. They were able to be on the front lines of this thing. But now, as we come out of this, the brokenness of this system, the low wages we pay, all of this is becoming more and more apparent and more at the forefront. And we need legislative solutions. So first, let me just tell you what the layout for today is going to be. We have a number of providers who are going to speak to us to lay the groundwork for what the problem is. And also, just as a side note, we had dozens of providers who wanted to speak today. Of course, there isn't time for everyone, but what we do want is for all of the providers out there to please put your story into the Q&A, a paragraph, a sentence, whatever you want to put it in the Q&A, and we'll be sure to forward that out to our legislators after the fact so that they're hearing all of those stories. So use the Q&A for that. You can use the chat to chat each other, and to all of the legislators who are here, you're welcome to use the chat to introduce yourself to everyone. Make sure you click to everyone, and that will go to all of the attendees as well. You can use that to introduce yourself and to let people know where you stand on some of these issues. If you are a senator or representative that is here and you are in attendee mode, not a panelist, please change your name to add rep or senator before your name and raise your hand, and we will be sure to promote you to panelist so that everyone here can see you. We'll change the view so that that is visible soon. Okay, so we're going to get started with some stories from providers. Our first story is actually from the Quiet Corner and was pre-recorded, which is less than ideal, but these directors knew that they were going to have to be in classrooms this morning because their staffing issues are so serious that as directors, they couldn't take that short amount of time to be with us live this morning. And so we're going to play a pre-recorded message from them first.
I'm Michelle Morin.
And I'm Michelle Yarjo, and we own Country Kids Childcare and Early Learning Center in Putnam, Connecticut.
We've built up a reputation over the 27 years we've been Country Kids. The schools know that our preschool kids come into kindergarten are well prepared. People through the hospital, we have Day Kimball Hospital up here, they send their kids, they've been sending families for years. We are an institution up here in Eastern Connecticut, and it would just be heartbreaking if we had to close.
We're reaching out because this is dire. We are in imminent danger of having to close. We just came back from the accountant. He's trying to figure out what we're able to do, what we're not able to do. I mean, these are dire straits. We're unable to get any income coming in because we can't staff, because we don't have anybody that wants to come in and make the minimum amount of money that we're able to make. Mm-hmm. We're in dire straits. And if that happens, we will close. And that is our biggest fear at this point, not just for ourselves, not just for our staff and our amazing teachers, but for those families. Where are they going to go?
We make up about half of the capacity of our licensed spots in our area of Connecticut. We're licensed for 80 children at one time. We've got 30 staff members. On any given day, we could have 5 to 6 staff members out. That's why Michelle and I wanted to get this on record now, because we more than likely will be in the classroom on Monday.
A lot of our staff members have to be out, whether it be due to COVID, due to the fact that they need to keep their children at home and isolated or quarantined. But the fact remains that if we do not have the staff members here, we're unable to open a classroom. Mm-hmm. If we're unable to open a classroom, that means we have to send families home. If we are unable to find enough staff members, we're licensed for 80, but we cannot take that many because we've had to shut classrooms down due to no staff.
We also aren't able to run to capacity because we don't have staffing to complete the ratios needed for these classrooms in any given time, regular time. We have a couple of classrooms that we don't have staff for, so we have to reduce the amount of children we can accept. We have a waiting list. We want to exaggerate, but it's not so much, a mile long just for the nursery.
We're unable to take those children because we can't find staff to put in that classroom to take care of the children, even though we have the room.
Many staff say, oh yeah, I would love to come work at a childcare center. We'd like to stay with the kids, but then they find out how much they're going to be paid an hour and they can't make a living wage. Something has to give. This is a downward spiral.
If we were to close, again, over half of the spots in this area would be closed, which means families would have nowhere to go. And if families have nowhere to go, then they have to make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge burden to have on our shoulders, as well as everything else that we do on a daily basis. We're sending out a plea, hoping that you'll hear us and actually listen to what we have to say and help and step in and understand that this is something, if we don't fix, is going to affect everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Liz, unmute yourself.
Thought I did. Sorry, thought I had unmuted myself. Let me just lost my paper here. Thank you to Michelle and Michelle. On our Monday calls, we've heard from providers like this, stories like this from all across the state. Many programs, just like Country Kids, are struggling and trying to figure out how to keep their doors open. This dynamic, please understand, began long before the pandemic. The pandemic just accelerated the spiral. The issue is that for many parents, childcare is their largest expense in their budget. But at the same time, the revenue is not enough to support the early care businesses and support providing care. The largest cost in centers is staffing. Early educators are earning far less than other entry-level positions. Country Kids has half the early care capacity in their area, but parents are only able to work and support their family if the early education programs are actually available. Early care and education supports families, our communities, and really the overall economy. The ability to pay staff appropriately is one of the foundational issues, and I would like to introduce you to Megan Adams from the Bristol Preschool to give you some more context. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for being here today. My name is Megan Adams. I'm the Executive Director of Bristol Child Development Center. We are formerly known as Bristol Preschool Child Care Center. We've been in business since 1951. We're a subsidized program that has 124 school readiness slots, 16 child daycare preschool slots, 31 child daycare infant toddler slots, and 9 private pay infant toddler slots. We're also CHIFA funded, Accept Care for Kids, and we're the only subsidized infant and toddler program in Bristol. I'm here to briefly discuss the staffing crisis with you. So far this year, we've lost 12 staff, all of which left to work for higher wages. 6 of those staff went to boards of education to be paraprofessionals because the rate of pay is so much higher. And then they know that they can take secondary jobs over the summer to make even more money. We've been struggling to find quality staff because our agency cannot afford to pay what they deserve, as we're a flat funded program. I have one classroom that has a wait list of families, but has been closed since August because I need 3 teachers to open that room. It's been very challenging to find staff when there are large franchises and big box stores that can pay much more than we can. For example, my son right out of high school took a job at Amazon starting at almost $19 an hour. He also received a $3,000 sign-on bonus, and he has at least 8 hours of overtime per week. Other companies such as Hobby Lobby, CVS, Walmart, and even Aetna all start their staff around $17 or higher. We require our teachers to have degrees. Their jobs are one of the most important in a child's life from the ages of infancy to preschool. In addition, we are an economic necessity so that parents can have quality care while they go to work. We should be able to pay our teachers a decent livable wage to match what they deserve for quality education and their experience. I thank you for listening today, and I hope that we can get to a place where childcare teachers are valued and compensated appropriately.
So Megan's story is one that we hear all over the state. There are over 100 preschool positions being advertised on Indeed right now. Last week, we polled the providers on the call, and we heard that 89% of providers had had difficulty hiring staff. 4 out of 5 are currently short-staffed. Almost 2 out of 3 have wait lists for children that they can't serve because they have classrooms that aren't staffed. And 2 out of 3 programs are losing money because they are not operating at capacity. Programs are sort of stuck in this loop of they can't, in order to break even, they need to be at about 90% capacity. And when you're down a classroom, you're probably below 90% of capacity. And if you can't raise wages to attract new staff, you're stuck in the situation of continuing to lose money. And that's where the childcare industry is right now. And let me, back to you, Izzy.
Okay, actually, we're going to Maria Reyes from Waterbury,
Yes. Okay.
who's a home-based provider. Maria? Let me remind you, actually, if you have not clicked interpretation and chosen English or Spanish, please do so now.
Buenos días, buenos días. Mi nombre es María Reyes. Soy proveedora hace 15 años. Soy la vicepresidenta regional de Waterbury y quiero que me escuchen mi voz, que es la voz de todos. Las proveedoras de Connecticut estamos abogando por un seguro de salud justo y necesario para todas, ya que nuestro salario no nos permite en ocasiones pagar un seguro de salud de alto costo. Yo ahora mismo estoy pagando un bill de $2,000 y no tuve que hacer un acuerdo de pago, porque si no me llevan para la colección y yo no quiero eso. Necesitamos un seguro de salud porque nosotras somos todas trabajadoras esenciales que cuidamos a los niños y es bueno que estemos en salud y con nuestro físico al día. Tenemos que tener salud, merecemos un seguro a buen costo, ya que solo cobramos a $2.50 la hora por un niño. No podemos cubrir los gastos. Por favor, escuchen mi voz, porque estas son por mucho tiempo, la familia cuentan con nosotros. Siempre que estemos en salud, en medio de esta pandemia, que hemos estado siempre presentes, exponiéndonos a todas las enfermedades, sin importar nuestra salud y riesgo. Le exigimos, por favor, que nos escuchen a los legisladores. Bendiciones. Gracias. Buen día.
Thank you so much, Maria, for that story. Ava?
Oh, I want to add, hello, everyone. I want to add that when I spoke to Maria earlier this week, she also mentioned that she had a current bill of $2,000 that she owed because her coverage didn't cut it. And Maria, like other providers, I helped as a nationwide assister through the program of Access LCT to get health insurance. And story after story after story, I heard of providers either opting out because health insurance was still expensive, or having to close their doors, on the brink of closing their doors because they had to choose between a medical bill or their childcare or the health of their own kids and family members. I wanted to highlight this story because it's often assumed that providers are taken care of, that they have right now during the pandemic enough support in that reality, but that's not true. Access LCT and other healthcare options have been phenomenal in getting a lot of people signed up to receiving health insurance, but not everyone. The prices in the first 5 years have gone up. We are fortunate that this upcoming year, 2022, going to 2023, there is expansions for those who are undocumented, but a lot of the providers are toggling between financial sacrifice. And again, just because we've made those necessary expansions, it does not mean that it takes in consideration when it comes to health insurance, the tuition for their children, their actual expenses that cannot be reported as a deduction for work. And all of those bills that are piling up, at the end of the day, they have to make the difficult decision of leaving their doors open or closing them. And if they close those doors, that means that they're not there to service the public community who needs them most. So healthcare expansion for providers, the potential of having maybe free health insurance would be night and day, not just Access LCT with a subsidy program. It may be going a little further. So I just wanted to highlight that to all the legislators on the call. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ava. Next, we have Nichelle Waddell, who is a family childcare provider who's going to talk about zoning and the issues of how this plays into the economics of childcare. Nichelle?
Good morning. My name is Nichelle Waddell, and the name of my program is Watch Me Grow Daycare, located in Stamford. I have been a childcare owner for 3 years and an educator for 10 years. It is no secret that there's a childcare crisis in the United States. You see countless news stories and articles. Yet family and group childcare providers experience persistent housing and zoning barriers that prevent them from starting and maintaining their businesses. There was a bill that has been introduced the last 2 years that will enforce and strengthen existing protections for home-based childcare businesses. I'm here to talk about the challenges that I faced and encourage you to please support this effort. I appeared before the Zoning Board of Appeals twice before being approved to operate a group family child daycare home. I went from being a family childcare home of 6 children to group family childcare home, which allows me to care for up to 12 children. The cost of appearing before the zoning board was $1,520 each time, for a total of $3,040. I also had to submit a Class A2 survey to the zoning board, and those go for a minimum of $2,600. I also had to hire a lawyer my second time around for $9,000 because I had been denied before, and my lawyer knew it was going to be difficult to get me approved the second time around. I'm paying these necessary fees were extremely costly, and I'm still in the process of paying off my legal debt. The zoning board granted my approval, but added the condition that I shuttle children to and from my program. Under the current conditions outlined by the zoning board, I've had to turn away 5 families since this year, January alone. And as recently as this past Saturday, I had to turn away a family with a 3-month-old in dire need of care. I am now in the process of requesting the zoning board to adjust this condition administratively. If they will not agree to do it administratively, I will incur more legal costs from my lawyer and another zoning board fee of $1,520 because I will have to appear before them again in March. That will put my zoning board fees alone at $4,560. These barriers have meant I've had to turn away parents of young children who are looking to return to work. Families have come to me before their children were born, looking for a high quality program for their children. Many mothers have 3 to 6 months before they have to return to work. Family childcare educators often meet this need. Threats of eviction from landlords and unforeseen zoning challenges stop providers from being able to offer consistent care to families who are relying on us to be able to get to work. I've spoken with other educators that have been interested in expanding to group family childcare, and they have decided against it due to the cost and the uncertainty of participating in the zoning board process. Childcare is well regulated in the state, and although the zoning boards mean well, they are stifling the supply of licensed family childcare in the state. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nichelle. Ava? Ava, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay,
I
there you
was
go.
right in the middle of promoting people. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our next speaker is Mark Jaffe from the Child Care Learning Center in Stamford, which is the second largest preschool provider in the state. He's going to explain some of the issues related to the fact that they are one of the subsidized programs. Before he starts, everyone should understand that childcare is about $1 billion industry in Connecticut. The vast majority of that is parent-paid fees, tuition. About a quarter of the children receive some subsidy, either through school readiness or the child daycare center contracts or the Care for Kids program. But that's just sort of a little context. And Mark, can you tell your story now?
Sure. Good morning. And legislators, thanks for joining us. So as Merrill indicated, we're the second largest center-based program in Connecticut. We're actually the largest that isn't a CAP agency that's focused just on early childhood education. We serve about 923 children in 8 centers. And we do that 51 weeks a year, 10 hours a day. So we are about a $16 million a year organization. And I will tell you, I'm from the private sector, so I will talk numbers and I will share our economic reality. The costs to us to serve a child is about $16,500 per year in our school readiness program. Again, 51 weeks a year, 10 hours a day, 2 meals and a snack a day. By 2023-24, that $16,500 will increase to about $19,000. So let's talk about what drives that. So minimum wage in 2015 was $9.15, and it will be by next year $15. So in the course of that 8 years, we have seen a 60% increase in the minimum wage. Now, our main source of revenue is the per child reimbursement, and that is $8,900 today, 2022, and it was $8,900 in 2015 when the minimum wage was $9.15. So CLC has always tried to be $3 ahead of the minimum wage, and to attract talent, that's no longer the case, and we've seen massive wage compression. So at CLC, let's talk about the revenues. So we have $8,900 from school readiness reimbursement. We have Care for Kids, of which only about 15% of our families qualify. So that translates into about $1,220. We get about $2,300 on average per annum from our families, and we have CACFP of about $800. So that's $14,000. Remember, our costs are $16,500. So we run a $2,500 per child deficit. And despite our size, we don't make it up in volume, which means that CLC, in order to stay in business, has to raise over $2 million a year in the private sector. And in 2 years, that number will approach $5 million. And I will tell you, I can't raise that. We're out of business. So now, I understand you have lots of calls on your capital, but I will tell you none is more important than early childhood education, and the return on investment in early childhood education is the best in education. So, you know, there's smart money and there's dumb money. Smart money should be investing in early childhood education. Now, you might also say, well, that's, you know, it's unprecedented. So I would ask that you look at charter schools. Charter schools are funded not out of the OEC, but out of the Connecticut State Department of Education. And at least as of 5 years ago, they were funded to the tune of $11,000 per year per child. But remember, that's school day, school year. So if you translate that into 51 weeks a year, 10 hours a day, that's the equivalent of $21,000. $21,000 or $8,900. We found the money for the charter schools. We can find the money for the rest of the program. So thank you, and we appreciate your listening.
Thanks, Mark. Merrill?
Mark has just explained the challenges of trying to operate a school readiness program with state funding that has been stagnant since 2015. Next, we're going to hear from Deb Poirier. who also runs, in addition to school readiness programs, also a infant toddler program through the CDC contract. Deb?
Good morning. My name is Debbie Poirier, and I am the director of TVCCA Little Learners Early Education Program and a member of the state-funded Child Daycare Directors Forum. We represent 102 early care and education centers throughout Connecticut, and we have been providing the highest quality to 4,300 children in 53 municipalities since 1968. Specifically in Southeastern Connecticut, TVCCA has been operating high-quality programs that serve low-income families for over 55 years. Our centers form an integral part of the early care and education system. We believe wholeheartedly in high standards and staff that meet the current requirements mandated by the school readiness law. The Office of Early Childhood established a system to fund child daycare and school readiness. The established unit rate reimbursement for infants and toddlers is $9,946 a year, where the average cost of care is $17,678. Centers have been receiving the same amount of reimbursement since 2014 for infant toddlers. In 2014, minimum wage in Connecticut was $8.70 an hour. Today, minimum wage is $13 an hour and will hit $15 an hour by June of 2023. By 2023, salaries alone in Connecticut have jumped 72%, while at the same time, the infant toddler rate has been increased by 0%. The reimbursement rate is set far below cost of providing services, with the understanding that the actual cost will be made up by the Care for Kids subsidy and parent tuition. We cannot continue to put the rising costs of childcare on the backs of families. As programs have been level funded for years, we've actually been facing a cut every year. Teacher salaries and benefits have increased, health insurance has increased, utilities have increased, and this was all before the pandemic hit, making it impossible to hire qualified staff. Stagnant state and federal fundings on our program has resulted in an economic crisis for the early care and education field. We have 1,000 teachers, assistant teachers, and support staff that are necessary to keep our doors open. Despite the situation of being extremely short-staffed, we continue to provide high-quality, NIAC-accredited childcare to our families. The mandated minimum wage change cost TVCCA alone $200,000. Every family that we serve is subsidized, meaning there is no way for us to charge higher tuition and recoup our losses. Our funding is stagnant and our costs continue to rise. Early care and education teachers are an important part of the workforce. We're critical to Connecticut's economy, and we were deemed essential when the pandemic hit, yet we continue to be one of the lowest paid professions. Programs are required to hire teachers with bachelor's degrees while paying an average of $30,000 to $40,000 across the state. An average public school teacher in Connecticut makes between $50,000 and $80,000 a year, remembering they only work 185 days a year. Programs across Connecticut are facing a severe workforce shortage. No one is entering the early care and education field due to the low pay and benefits associated with the positions. Competition for workers is at an all-time high, and programs cannot enroll new children because we do not have the staff needed to meet the ratios. The current system is broken and we are on a downward death spiral. Without significant changes to the way programs are funded, there has been and will continue to be an erosion of the child care infrastructure, leading to increased child poverty. Without childcare, many parents will have to leave their jobs. This impacts the family's ability to stay out of poverty and will increase the unemployment rate as well as the state welfare rolls. There's also an educational risk to not serving children. Children who are not receiving quality early care and education services are at a higher risk of needing intervention services later on at a much greater cost. We have got to stabilize the early care and education programs. The biggest barrier to sustainability is lack of funding and qualified staff. We cannot hire staff because we cannot pay them. No staff equals no childcare, and the economic childcare industry crumbling. Quality early care and education is critical for the health and development of young children and the ability of parents to fully participate in the workforce. In the face of this crisis, we urge you to fully fund the Connecticut childcare industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Meryl?
I think Deb has summed it up pretty well, that the childcare industry faces a huge staffing shortage. And during this call, I just got information from Indeed. There are currently 750 preschool teaching ads, 315 assistant teacher positions, and 260 infant toddler positions. So that totals about 1,400, about 1,300 early education staff positions that are open. That's the magnitude of this problem, that across the state programs can't hire staff because their revenue is limited by what parents can pay and what you've heard about, the problems of the state subsidy amounts not increasing to cover costs. This is a huge problem that will continue to erode the financial viability of childcare programs, and we will start to see programs close. Our next speaker is Alex Schiavone from the Friends School in New Haven, who's going to tell her story.
Hi. Yes, thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks, Alex. And just before you start, I want to let everyone know that after you're finished, I'm going to switch it to gallery mode so everyone here can see Georgia, who is the next speaker, and see all of the legislators. Go ahead, Alex. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm a visual learner, so we're going to look at this visually today. So I'm Alex Schiavone. I'm the Executive Director of Friends Center for Children and the co-founder of New Haven Children's Ideal Learning District. Thank you for your time today. I'm grateful for the chance to share with you. Thank you in advance for listening. I love my work. I work with children and families, children ages 3 months to 5 years and their families. We have school readiness, CDC, and Care for Kids funding in our program. All of our school readiness slots are subsidized, and half of our infant toddler slots are subsidized with CDC. I'm lucky to work with an organization that is devoted to children, families, and teachers, and we are constantly thinking of ways to fix the broken system. While I love it, I am exhausted, as is the entire Friends Center community. This is what high quality care looks like. You can see that there's children's art around, there's culturally and ethnic representation of the children, they have access to space. This is what external high quality spaces look like. There's plenty of room for play. Children actually dictate the play. There are not existing structures. There are ways for them to create space and figure out how they would like to engage in the space. This is what high quality interactions look like. You can see these children playing here. They are actually recreating a construction scene they saw. This is the floor person. This is mixing concrete. We have a hammer here. This is what high quality interactions look like between a teacher or an educator and the children. They're in music time, they're engaged, they're all enjoying themselves. This is actually an opportunity where the children wanted to know what happens when you hammer golf tees into a pumpkin. And this is an exploration of that for the class. This is who high quality impacts. This is Jakeem. He likes to be called Jay. Jay thrives when his basic needs are met, like food and housing. He can't learn when he is hungry or sleeping in the car with his two siblings because his mom lost her job due to COVID and she couldn't pay the rent. High quality programs understand that basic needs must be met in order for Jay to thrive. This is Josie. Her nickname is Jay. Jay blooms when she feels safe, loved, and educationally stimulated. Jay's rate of brain development between birth to age 3 is the fastest in her entire lifespan. High quality programs understand that learning opportunities must meet all of her needs. This is Julian Jr. His family calls him Jay. Jay grows when he has developmentally appropriate opportunities for learning. His brain was born with 100 billion neurons. Neurons are the conduits that our brains have to share both incoming and outgoing information. Synapses are the contact points where Jay's neurons communicate with one another. They do this by forming pathways that Jay uses to pass information back and forth, enabling to understand and respond to his world. This network is the foundation for all future learning. If ignored, these synapses die and will not come back to life. High quality programs have well-trained educators that know how to foster Jay's brain development so that Jay's brain synapses are alive and can flourish. Jay is every child. High quality actually costs $22,000 to $25,000 for infant and toddler care and $17,000 to $19,000 for preschool. Programs are currently allocated about half of that, and these subsidies have not increased since 2015. Programs are operating across the state. They're receiving subsidies at 50% the true cost of care. Oh, sorry, it's trying to, I lost my, somehow I got into the wrong thing, one moment. So programs are operating at 50% the cost of care. Since families cannot afford to pay more for high quality early care and education, and the subsidies are 50% below the true cost of care, programs make up the difference by reducing expenses. This impacts high quality because there are less funds for educational materials, there are larger group sizes, less teachers per group size, no capacity to partner with families with regard to food, housing, or workforce needs, no capacity to manage child, family, and teacher emotional well-being, not enough funds to pay teachers livable wages. That means that Jay does not thrive. That means that Jay's teachers are not valued. Providers and educators are telling you that we need a substantial rate increase. We cannot continue to be marginalized, underfunded, and overburdened. Early childhood educators, 98% female, are paid on average $24,000 per year. We are paying women to live in poverty. We cannot continue to operate at rates that were determined in 2015 when the minimum wage was $9.15. Emergency funding from the pandemic did not solve this issue. It gave us money to stay operational due to revenue loss and increased COVID expenses. It did not solve salary or operational gap crises. What is the value of the women who take care of and educate Jay? I use the word value intentionally. Our decision not to adequately fund ECE programs is due to the fact that we do not value women and children. We must stop using this false narrative that it's about money. It's not. There is enough money. It's not about money. Oops, sorry. If it were about money, we would be investing in Jay's learning and well-being from birth, because it has been proven by Nobel Prize winning professor in economics, Dr. James Heckman, that for every dollar we invest in early care and education, we get a $7 to $13 return, and we still do not invest in early childhood education. So as you think about this, as you move into deciding about our industry and the rates that we need to provide high quality early care and education across the state of Connecticut, remember Heckman and the programs and the educators and the families, but most of all, remember Jay, because Jay matters. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was a much needed presentation, and we love the faces of the children. I think we're all here because of those children, right? Legislators, providers, advocates. Advocates like our next speaker, Georgia Goldburn. She's been caring since 2001. She has a center based in New Haven. It's a faith-based center. And again, representing those voices, and our goal here is making sure that providers are still open, not just because of the COVID pandemic, but because we need providers past any circumstance. We need to keep a workforce alive. So Georgia, the mic is yours. Please share your story with us.
And I have to apologize once more because I am angry and I hate speaking in my anger. And I'm angry because It was about 2 years ago when our center was shut down and the state was shut down, and I shouldn't say my center was shut down. We were never shut down in the pandemic, but we were asked to serve less families. And when the state went into a lockdown, we had parents who were scrambling to figure out where to leave their children. I went to my staff because after we reassess our financial situation, I came to my staff and I presented to them the different scenario. And I said to them, the best scenario for us and for you is for our center, Hope Child Development Center, to shut down, for you to go home and to collect unemployment, because you would be making significantly more than you would be making here. And my staff said, no, we're going to stay here for the parents. And they did. And we operated through the pandemic. When we were scared and we did not understand this disease, we operated during the pandemic. We closed down once in April for 2 weeks because that was the height of the pandemic. And I did not want my staff to come out in the height of the pandemic. And we've never shut down again. My staff showed up for this state because our governor said he needed us. And we saw in the eyes of those children that they needed us. And we saw in the eyes of those parents who were scared, but were essential, that needed to go and stock the grocery stores, that needed to open the bank to make sure that money flowed, that needed to go into the hospital to cure and to help people that were dying. They needed us, and we saw that, and we stepped up and we came out and we served the state and we served this family. And now we need you. And we're coming to you and we're saying we need you. But we are coming to you as urchins with our hands held out, saying, please, sir, can we have more? And I'm angry that this state has put us in this situation, because when you needed us, you simply called and we were there. And you did not have to do a PowerPoint presentation for us to show up for you and every single parent. 65% of family childcare providers invited the virus into their homes when they invited those children into their homes. And they should not be here when the state has billions of dollars in a rainy day fund, billions of dollars in a surplus, trying to make a case to you of why we should be paid more than a 14-year-old who is taking their first summertime job. Somebody who has a bachelor's degree and has been working for 20 years. We should not be here explaining to anybody why we should be paid more. And so I'm angry. I'm angry because my staff showed up. I'm angry because this state is not showing up for us. And this is not just about showing up for the providers. This is about showing up for the children of this state. There are many representatives that are on this call right now, legislators that are on this call right now. In 2016 and 2017, when we shut down the Care for Kids program, and 9 babies died, 6 of them in unregulated care. Because when parents had to go to work, they needed somewhere to leave their babies. And so the state, after that event, invested in advertising and letting parents know about trusted licensed care. These are the providers that are on the call right now telling you we are on the brink of collapse. And I want to find out which legislator, which person from the governor's office is going to be the first person to speak to a parent whose baby is in the martyr in this fight, for legislators and for the state of Connecticut to do the right thing for our children and for our early care providers. Who is going to speak to that family and said, I'm sorry, we didn't understand, when that child is lost to us because they were in a place that was unsafe for them, because a center like Hope, a center like Friend Center was shut down. A family childcare provider like Maria and Nichelle was shut down. Who is going to have that conversation with that family about that precious child? At the time when Care for Kids was shut down, we understood there was no money there. And we made the sacrifice like we always do in this state, because we have been told over and over again by legislators, there's no money there. Money is there now, so there is no excuse. So let's be truthful. There is no value there. There is no will there. There is no love for understanding the work that we do every single day on behalf of the smallest, most vulnerable constituents in this state. And I am so disappointed that we are still having this conversation after the worst event that has happened to this state, and providers who stepped up, including when the public school shut down. We were there for those families. We stepped up. We should not be coming to you on our hands and our knees, begging you for scraps. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Georgia, thank you so much. That you can see from the nods of agreement on the call, from the chat, you are in good company. Your words are powerful and they're real, and they're based on injustice. And there is no one in this industry that doesn't feel your anger. And I think that if you aren't feeling that, then you aren't paying attention to what's happening. My child babysits and makes the same amount of money that many of our early educators on this call are making. And that is outrageous, honestly. So thank you to Michelle, thank you to Maria, thank you to Nichelle, to Mark, Deb, Alex. You all are keeping our state going. And so I hope that the representatives, legislators here heard that and got a better sense of why this isn't working. I'm going to keep it in gallery mode so we all can see each other for the next few minutes as we sort of wrap up. But I wanted to turn it now to Meryl to give us expectations on what you all can expect from us in this legislative session, and to sort of lay out what we're hoping for. And if there's any questions from legislators, you can feel free to post those in the chat, and we'll see how we can get those answered also. Meryl?
So the group that has come together on these calls has been working together for 3 years or 2.5 years through this pandemic. And it is very clear to all of us that the model for funding childcare was broken before the pandemic, but with the pandemic and the disruption to the industry, that it is now clear to everybody that it's broken. That we have programs now that are still here, but are slowly dying because they're operating at less than break even. And their prospects for being able to get back to break even are pretty low, because they are among the programs that are competing for a very scarce workforce. As I said, there are over 1,200 early care positions being advertised now, and that's people paying to advertise because they don't have staff. We need to change this. We need to immediately figure out a way in which we can supplement wages in the industry so that we still have an industry. And we know that the Education Committee will be working on a bill. I have heard that there are some other committees thinking about bills as well. But the industry needs a lifeline, and we need to move towards a system that makes more sense, where families can actually afford the quality care that their children deserve. There is a new coalition that many of us are involved with called Child Care for Connecticut's Future, that will be pushing a bill to move us to a system where preschool would be free and that childcare would be subsidized so that no family has to pay more than 7% of their income for childcare. We frequently forget that for many families, for any family that has 2 children in care, this is their single largest expense. You can easily spend more on childcare than on a rent or mortgage. So there will be some legislation coming forward, and we need everyone to understand that this really is a crisis, that the funds that went to early care this past year, everyone was very excited that the state got $346 million to support the childcare industry. And that sounds like a huge amount of money, especially when you look at how much Connecticut spends in a regular year to subsidize childcare, which is about $250 million. But what we forget is that 3/4 of the children are not touched by any subsidy at all. The subsidies that we've been providing are not adequate, as you've heard from providers. And the money that came in as emergency pandemic relief has already been spent. That filled the holes that existed because programs had shut down and programs had additional costs. But the dilemma of not being able to pay competitive wages competitive with the rest of the economy is a fundamental problem that is going to force programs to close. And that's what is in our future. We will start to see more and more programs close, and that will force more parents out of the workforce or having to use unsafe, unlicensed care. So this is something that really needs attention. All right, back to you, Izzy.
Okay, thank you so much. And I just want to let you all know, the heart of this, we're of course so appreciative to the nearly 40 legislators who are here today, and we will be sending out the complete list of all of the delegates who were here so that all of our attendees are aware. We've also had about 400 people on this call this morning, in and out, which is an incredible number. And being able to do this in virtual space means that not only can we reach a much larger group than if we were doing this at the Capitol, how we sometimes have, but it also means we can provide Spanish interpretation so that so many of our folks who are not English speakers are able to also be here and participate as well. So, of course, the hugest thanks here goes out to our provider community who are probably holding children right now as they're participating in this call. Talk about juggling. We know what you're doing, and we've heard some of these incredible stories today. I would like to just give a little bit of time. I don't know how long folks can stay. We typically go till 11, but I know we've had you for a while. To our delegates, if you wanted to just take 1 second to introduce yourself, you can raise your hand if you'd like to do that. I'm happy to call on you, but obviously there's a lot of you, and so we'd want to keep it as short as we can. But if you want to do that, you're welcome to raise your hand and I can call on you. But you don't have to either. I know. Okay, Representative Curry, why don't you get us started, and then we'll go to Representative Comey after that.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Jeff Curry here, state rep out of East Hartford, Manchester, and South Windsor. I just want to thank all the providers and folks on the call today for sharing those stories. I think we've hit the point where we all are finally realizing and understanding that our funding systems and mechanisms from early childhood education all the way through grade 12 are broken, completely broken, and need to be fixed. And I know we have a number of folks in the legislature. I am personally with some folks working on the K through 12 model, but I don't think the two should be mutually exclusive. And so I would love to have some further conversations to partner with those of you who are leading the efforts on the early childhood side to see how we may be able to combine those voices and ensure that the administration hears what is being said today and every day from this point on to see what kind of movement we can make. So again, I really appreciate the time and look forward to these discussions.
Thank you so much. Representative Comey and then Senator Miller.
Thank you so much, Izzy, and thank you to everybody here on the call and for putting this together. You know, it's this is not lost on me, but I will say I have not heard it laid out as clearly, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken to do this. You know, I was recently, we get to speak at Chamber of Commerce meetings and places like that, and I just keep shouting from that side that, you know, you complaining about all you're you know, concerned about filling all these jobs that you have and economic growth, and I'm shouting it from the rooftops there at those meetings that it is all intricately connected to our childcare industry and the ability to provide quality, affordable care. So, I mean, I'm 150% on your side and connected with your work personally as well. As you know, love to work with Rep. Curry and all the advocates to make sure that we give as much support to you as we absolutely can. I did hear quite a few different asks, so I want to be able to understand the different levels of investments that we need to continue to make in this industry. So thank you so much for an incredible presentation this morning.
Thank you. And just for clarity, we are talking birth through 5 here. We're talking infants and toddlers. We're talking preschool. We're talking this big group. We want to just be clear. This is not just about, you know, universal pre-K. And so I just want to say that we're going to go to Senator Miller and then Representative Williams. Go ahead.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, everyone. And I did write something in the chat. I just want to apologize on behalf of the state. I've been a representative. I was a representative. I'm a senator now, but I got sworn in 2009. And this conversation is the same conversation I've heard since 2009. And COVID, like so many other broken parts of our system in this state, COVID has only exacerbated the problem. And Meryl, I have to say, I've seen you pull your hair out over the years. I've seen your frustration. And I want to thank you for your advocacy, because you have advocate for early childhood care. And if it wasn't for his advocacy, we wouldn't have the Care for Kids to come back. And so I want to thank you and your partners for your work and trying to make us aware how important early childhood care is. I mean, we know about brain development. We know what these children go through if they don't get the education that they need, because guess what? They go into our other system, our K-12, and they won't be prepared. And so then the problem is, you know, exacerbated even more. So I want to thank you. I apologize. Thank you all. I see the frustration. I hear the frustration. Gloria, thank you for your passion. I appreciate your passion. And we have to do better as a state. And so you're right. There is extra money there. And let's fight to see if we can get a increase in salaries and minimum wage. And so and beyond the minimum wage, because that was an issue. When we raised the minimum wage, your industry was the first industry to say, hey, look, you're going to have to raise the rates because we're not going to be able to afford to pay people. And so we need to give you more money so that you can stop this bleed of people exiting, right? Your companies or your agencies and your facilities, your programs. So again, I apologize. That's all I could say, because COVID has been difficult for all of us, but I think it hit you the hardest, and as well as the healthcare workers. So thank you very, very much for your patience. And I hope that we could do better. I'm going to fight for us to do better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. We're going to have Representative Williams, then D'Amico, then Palm. And please, I did write this in the chat. Not every legislator is able to speak this morning, but please don't hear the silence as a lack of support. You're juggling children and they're juggling committee meetings and other things. So, so we'll keep going. Go ahead, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Izzy. I appreciate you. Was going to Representative Williams for the 100 district. I will do a quick 10-second thing. I said I am in the process of changing my name. So I appreciate Izzy being the first person to recognize me with this new name change in order to honor my mother. So thank you for that. I greatly appreciate it. I couldn't imagine any other friend welcoming to the community like this. This is about choice. This is really about choice, and this is really about empowerment. And I think you all have laid out both the moral reasons of making sure that we can have a more equitable society, making sure that we truly treat all children as if they matter and that they care. This is about showing love to one another and taking care of each other. But this is also about the economy. And this is about sustaining our business. I think what you all have laid out in particular is that if this was an industry that wasn't, generally speaking, ran, owned, managed by women, we would have vastly different outcomes in how we support this industry. If this wasn't about how we are taking care of our most vulnerable children, we would have vastly different ways of investing in this. So you have laid out both the moralistic reasons and the economic reasons for why we need to change. As we were going through this pandemic, as you all laid out, some of the first people to step up were you all, and by definition, truly showing the essentialness of your work. So not only do I applaud you, I will continue to be a champion of saying we need to start education literally from birth and making sure that every family has a choice on how to best serve their own child.
Thank you, Representative, and congratulations. We are a group that stands behind honoring mothers, and we congratulate you on that significant change. Representative D'Amico, and then Representative Palm.
Thanks, Izzy, and thanks to everybody who put this together today. The stories that we heard were really powerful, and I certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure my colleagues did as well. So I think we're all with you, otherwise we wouldn't be on this call. But rather than making a statement, I just have a question, and I think I'm going to direct it to Merrill, only because I know him better than anybody else that's in this group with regards to the advocates. So I'm just curious to know, and he doesn't have to answer it if he doesn't want to, or it's too delicate. Just curious to know, what kind of answer do the advocates get when the question comes up, when these monetary issues come up? Is there some kind of a nuanced answer that goes beyond, well, sorry, we have the will, but we don't have the wallet? Is it more nuanced than that? Because I'd be curious to know.
So, we have certainly been asking for additional funds now for years. We saw what it took with Care for Kids. The program actually shut down for 17 months before it was reopened. And, that was a long drawn out battle. Year after year, we see governors who don't propose increases in the subsidy programs. Our Care for Kids program is paying at the 25th percentile of market for preschool, the 50th percentile for infants and toddlers. The federal government says we should be at the 75th percentile. But really, we need to move away from market rates altogether, because you've already heard the private programs tell you that they can't charge parents enough to be able to pay wages that are competitive in the broader economy. It is much easier for a restaurant to put a more expensive item on the menu and advertise that than it is for childcare programs to increase the cost of what for many families is already their most expensive expense. So we need to move from a system where this is a service that parents have to pay for themselves to a system more like other parts of the world, where there is real government societal support for childcare as a public good. And when you look at the experience in other places, like when you look at Quebec, what they found was that the increase in women moving into the workforce produced enough income and tax revenue to pay for the cost of providing the care. We hinder ourselves by making parents pay for this when we have so many families who can't afford to pay for care. We had a shortage before the pandemic of 50,000 infant toddler spaces. The reason we have that shortage is it is not economically viable for programs to provide that care. Most childcare programs lose money on their infant toddler program, and they subsidize it with their preschool. And so when you are in financial difficulty, the first thing you do is close your infant toddler room because it costs more to run. And that means that families with little kids have trouble getting back into the workforce. And the longer that somebody separates from the workforce, the more interruption in their career, the bigger the long-term impacts. We need to transform the way that we fund childcare in this country and in this state. So we really think that it's going to take bold action and not just the incremental, a couple percent here and a couple percent there kind of approach.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. We'll have Representative Palm and then Representative Paris.
Hi, everybody. Just very briefly, I just want to thank Izzy and Merrill. From the time I was at the Women's Commission 10 or 12 years ago, he was banging this gong, and I know I want to echo what Rep. Pat Billy Miller said about, just the deplorable self-satisfaction the state shows when it comes to childcare providers. And we were just on a call a couple of days ago with nonprofits, and I think there's a real echo there. And as I invariably do, I want to agree with my beloved and esteemed colleague, Q Williams, because the moral courage that it takes to lead with the pocketbook is something that COVID has brought to the fore. And if we can't figure out now how to support you folks, then we never will. And I think that's shameful. And I think it takes a lot more than hanging, red hearts in trees and little signs that say thank you. And I've said that from the beginning of the pandemic. We need to put our money where our mouth is. And I hope that, this crisis will be a crisis ultimately of healing. And then my final thing is to thank all the daycare providers and early childhood educators, because my own kids who are now, pushing 40, their time in a little daycare called New Dawn in Hartford, where they were the only white kids in that place, made them the citizens they are today. It was an educational experience that was unparalleled. And we took them out at one point and put them in a very expensive, exclusive daycare where they were miserable. And we went back to this little neighborhood, marginal place where they became remarkable world citizens. So I want to thank you all for the work that you do, helping young kids learn how to be good citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Palm. Representative Paris.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And I'd just like to echo all of the sentiments that my colleagues have all shared. I think it's really important to reiterate that you can tell a lot about a society in the ways that they treat women and children. And clearly, we need to do better here in our state. I see the work that many child care providers are doing every single day on the ground in a very different view from actually being in a child care center. I can tell you that the decisions that they have to make are not decisions that a lot of other entities, organizations, and academic and educational spaces have to make. And so, the only thing that I can do, of course, is thank everyone on the call, all of the providers, Merrill, to you and your team, and to the advocates. Thank you for all that you do. But the one thing that I do want to encourage everyone to place focus on is for parents and providers and for any advocate to turn up the heat in educating legislators, those who are not here today, in educating our governor, and educating all of the folks who don't understand how critical this issue is, educating them on why the investment must be made. Because if we miss the open window that we have here, we will be setting our state back many, many years to come by not acting now. And so if it takes letters, if it takes appearances at the Capitol, if it takes phone calls, whatever it takes, I'm begging you all to hold our feet to the ground, to hold us accountable, and to continue to educate a space of leaders and thought thought leaders and stakeholders that need to really commit action to this today and every day. So I just want to thank you all again, and also just encourage you all to keep up the good fight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you know, there's a good fight to be had here. Meryl, I'll let you have the last word, and then I'm going to wrap it up.
So last week, there were very positive job numbers. But if you looked below the surface number, what you saw was that most of those jobs went to men. And if you dug even deeper into those numbers, what you would see is that the number of women re-entering the workforce, meaning that they're either employed or starting to look for work, is absolutely dwarfed by the number of men entering the workforce or finding jobs. In fact, it's 27 times more men coming back into the labor force than women. We still have over 1 million women who have left the workforce since the pandemic. And, you know, the expression that in some countries there's a social safety net, here we have women. That's what's going on. Women are caring for children or elders or sick people, and that's why they're not coming back into the workforce. We are operating now with less childcare capacity than we had because programs can't staff. And because of that, they are in this death spiral of running in the red. We're going to lose more care, and that's going to keep women from coming back into the workforce, which is going to extend the time that we are seeing help wanted signs everywhere. If we want to get the economy back up and running, we need to make sure that we have childcare, because childcare is the labor force behind the labor force. And so this is something that we need to figure out how to solve. And so I hope that all of you will work with us in the legislature to move forward legislation that will address these problems. Thank you.
Thank you. And so for all of the delegates who are able to join us today, we have these calls every single Monday at 9:30 a.m. You're now registered for them. We'd love to invite you to join anytime that you'd like. Representative Comey is often here, Representative Michelle. We have some who are joining on a regular basis, and we invite you to join anytime. And if you do, you won't hear us begging you to make change. You'll hear the nitty-gritty, yucky stuff that it takes to keep a childcare program open right now. You'll hear about people who don't have masks and don't understand how to quarantine children because all of the information coming from the government is confusing. You'll see people figuring out how they can manage a wait list when they can't find staff. You'll hear people who are just trying to figure out how to ventilate their space because they want to keep the children as safe as can be. You'll hear questions around whether children are going to learn to speak properly when their caregivers have masks, and what can we be doing to ensure that brain development is happening. That is the nitty-gritty, difficult conversation that has been happening every week, sometimes multiple times a week on this exact forum. We get 700, 800, 900 providers joining us on some weeks. This is not a small group of people. This is a serious group with serious voice, and they want to be taken seriously. And as you can hear from their comments today, the incredible provider community that spoke to you today, there's some real struggle out there, and we're not going to make it. Childcare is not daycare. This is not babysitting. This is our youngest, most vulnerable, most precious minds in their most important moments of development. This is our parents who are our workforce. This is our state's economy, and we need you to take action. And we will be there supporting you, sometimes pushing against you to make this happen. So the 400 people who were able to be here today is still a small fraction of the people who are here on a regular basis. So the other point to make here is that this is not something we can wait for the federal government to solve for us. The Build Back Better plan, if it passes, if the childcare components pass, those will be amazing. but we can't wait for that. We can't wait for some mystery thing that may or may not happen when the federal government sorts itself out. We need relief this minute. We needed it 20 years ago. We need to be paying our early educators as educators, not as babysitters. We need to be honoring them. We need to be supporting our children. You all understand that. You've heard the stories. You've heard Georgia's impassioned rage and compelling call to action. You've seen, PowerPoints. You've heard about financials. There's nothing more to say. There's only work to be done. And so we will share all of these stories with you. We'll share the recording. We will share the lists, everything that you need coming out of today. We will get that for you. But what we need now is action. And so we're counting on you. That's that. I'm going to let everybody go now. We're going to wrap this up and we're going to come knocking on your door over the course of the session. And I want to be optimistic and say we're going to solve this session. But if we don't, we're not going to stop knocking on your door until this is solved. And we welcome and invite any of you to be here with us on any given Monday at 9:30. It's the same link you joined with today. And we welcome and can't wait for the partnership that comes from this moment. So thank you so much. Thank you to our providers and this incredible community of advocates, of mothers and fathers of community. It's a remarkable group. Have a wonderful week, everyone. And let's do this.
Thank you, everyone.